Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into Cheating Tales Lab. We appreciate every single one of you. We'd love to know, what part of the world are you watching from right now? Let us know in the comments. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. The Anniversary. Vincent Mercer stared out the window of their luxury suite at the Parisian skyline, the Eiffel Tower gleaming in the distance. This 10th anniversary trip was supposed to be special, but something felt off about Diana's behavior since they'd landed 3 days ago. She'd been distant, constantly checking her phone, and making excuses to go off alone. At 42, Vincent had built an empire from nothing. The son of a factory worker from Detroit, he'd clawed his way through college on scholarships, founded a cybersecurity firm that he'd grown into a powerhouse, and married Diana Lawrence, the daughter of wealthy New England aristocrats who'd initially looked down on him as unworthy of their daughter. Their marriage had been passionate at first. Diana, with her golden hair and piercing blue eyes, had been drawn to his intensity and ambition. In those early days, she'd told him she found the controlled power behind his dark eyes irresistible. But somewhere along the way, things had changed. The passion cooled, replaced by comfort and routine. Or so he thought. "You seem tense," said Boyd Mercer, Vincent's younger brother by 5 years, stepping onto the balcony with a glass of bourbon in each hand. "Drink." Vincent accepted the glass, studying his brother's face. Boyd had always been the charmer, the one who sailed through life on good looks and charisma rather than hard work. Vincent had given him a job at the company 3 years ago when Boyd's startup had failed, his third business failure. Vincent had always protected his brother, bailed him out of trouble, given him second chances. "Diana's been acting strange this trip," Vincent said, taking a sip of bourbon. Boyd's eyes flickered away for just a moment. "How so?" "Secretive. Distant." Vincent shrugged. "Probably nothing." Howard and Marilyn Lawrence, Diana's parents, joined them on the balcony. Howard, still imposing at 70, had never approved of Vincent despite his success. Marilyn was quiet as always, living in her husband's shadow. "Where's Diana?" Howard asked. "Shopping," Vincent replied. "She wanted to go alone." Howard nodded, exchanging a brief glance with Boyd that might have gone unnoticed by someone less observant than Vincent. When Diana returned 2 hours later, her shopping bags seemed suspiciously light for someone who'd been gone so long. That night at dinner, Vincent noticed how Boyd's hand brushed against Diana's when passing the wine, how her laughter at his jokes seemed too bright, how Howard watched them both with an expression Vincent couldn't quite read. Later that night, as Diana slept beside him, Vincent checked her phone. A message from Boyd. "Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Hotel Louvier." Vincent's blood ran cold, then hot. He replaced the phone carefully and lay awake until dawn, his mind racing with possibilities, each worse than the last. The next morning, Diana announced she needed to shop for a special gift for Vincent, alone. "Take your time," Vincent told her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. He gave her a 15-minute head start before following her into the Parisian streets. Something inside him already knew what he would find, but he needed to see it with his own eyes. Needed to know the full extent of the betrayal. Chapter 2. The Betrayal. Vincent followed Diana through the labyrinthine streets of Paris, maintaining a careful distance. She never once looked back, completely confident in her deception. He watched as she bypassed boutique after boutique without a second glance. No shopping today. Only lies. When she finally turned into the ornate entrance of Hotel Louvier, Vincent's jaw tightened. He counted to 30 before following, slipping into the lobby and positioning himself behind a large decorative column with a view of the elevators. Diana was already gone, but the concierge's computer was visible from Vincent's position. Room 512. He waited a few minutes, then took the stairs. The hallway of the 5th floor was deserted. Vincent moved silently to room 512. Years of controlling his emotions in high-stakes business deals now serving him well. The door wasn't fully closed. Another insult, the carelessness of it. As if they didn't even consider the possibility of discovery. Through the crack, he could see them. Boyd sat on the edge of the bed, shirt unbuttoned. Diana stood near the window, running her fingers through her hair. "He doesn't suspect a thing, right?" Boyd asked, a smirk playing on his lips. "Please, relax," Diana laughed, the sound cutting through Vincent like a blade. "He's too blind to see what's right in front of him." Vincent's hand tightened on the doorframe. The betrayal was one thing. But the mockery, the contempt in her voice as she spoke of him, that was something else entirely. A knock at the door made them both turn. Diana opened it to reveal Howard Lawrence, pulling a small suitcase behind him. "Your new life awaits," Howard said, handing Diana what looked like plane tickets and documents. "Everything's arranged. After the divorce, you'll have controlling interest in his company. The prenup becomes void once we establish his mental instability." He smiled coldly. "The medication I've been supplying you has been building up in his system for months. The psychotic break is just a matter of time." Vincent froze. They weren't just betraying him. They were poisoning him, planning to steal everything he'd built. "What if he fights it?" Boyd asked. "Then we have other options," Howard replied, his tone making it clear what kind of options he meant. Vincent has always been an obstacle. His background, his stubborn refusal to let me guide the company in the right direction. This is for the best. "And Mother?" Diana asked. "She'll accept it, as she always does," Howard said dismissively. Vincent backed away silently, his mind crystallizing into something hard and cold. He'd been a fool, but no longer. They wanted to destroy him? They would learn what real destruction looked like. He walked away in silence, allowing himself no outward reaction. Not yet. Not until he was ready. He returned to their hotel suite and began making calls, to his personal lawyer, to his head of security, to his private banker. By the time Diana and the others returned that evening, he had already set certain wheels in motion. He greeted them with practiced normalcy, accepting Diana's gift, an expensive watch, with a smile and a kiss on her cheek. He noted how she flinched almost imperceptibly at his touch. He savored the knowledge that he now possessed, letting it fuel the cold rage building inside him. That night, he emptied his dinner and wine into potted plants when no one was looking, pretending to consume the poison they were feeding him. After dinner, he complained of a headache and retired early, giving them time to whisper and plot. In the bathroom, he examined the pills Diana had been secretly giving him, likely mixed into his food or drinks. A quick internet search confirmed his suspicions, a combination that would create symptoms similar to paranoid schizophrenia over time. Vincent allowed himself one moment of pure, blinding rage, one silent scream into a towel, before locking that emotion away. Rage was a tool to be used, not a master to be served. He had work to do. Chapter 3, The Reckoning. The return flight to Boston was thick with tension that only Vincent could feel. To the others, he was the same Vincent as always, perhaps a bit quieter, attributed to the headaches he kept mentioning. Inside, he was calculating, planning, seeing each of them clearly for the first time. Diana, with her practiced concern and gentle touches that now felt like insults. Boyd, with his false brotherhood and jokes that suddenly seemed tinged with mockery. Howard and Marilyn, watching it all unfold. One as architect, one as silent witness. Vincent had learned much about them all during the remainder of their Paris trip. Late-night searches through phones and laptops while they slept had revealed the full extent of the plot. Boyd and Diana's affair had been going on for nearly 2 years. Howard had orchestrated most of it, seeing an opportunity to gain control of Vincent's company, which had recently developed revolutionary encryption software that Howard believed should be sold to the highest bidder, something Vincent had refused to do. The medication plan had been Howard's idea, but Diana had eagerly embraced it. Boyd had hesitated initially. Vincent found messages showing his reluctance, but greed won out. They planned to have Vincent committed after a public breakdown, take control of the company, and sell the technology for billions. The affair was both real and convenient cover. Most surprising was what he'd found on Marilyn's tablet, a journal detailing her knowledge of the plot. She disapproved, but felt powerless to stop it. Decades under Howard's control had broken her will to resist him. When they arrived home, Vincent was prepared. As they approached the front door of the sprawling mansion Vincent had purchased 5 years ago, he triggered the first part of his plan with a text message. They all froze at the doorstep. Inside, visible through the glass panels framing the door, were 4 men in suits. Vincent's head of security, his lawyer, a private investigator, and a doctor. "What's this?" Diana asked, her voice tight. "Some business associates," Vincent said casually, opening the door. "Come in, we have matters to discuss." The panic in their eyes was palpable. Howard attempted to take control. "Whatever this is, Vincent, it can wait. We're all tired from the trip. It can't wait." Vincent replied, his voice like steel wrapped in silk. Please sit down. Once they were all seated in the living room, Vincent nodded to the doctor, who approached with a medical kit. This is Dr. Leland. He's going to take blood samples from all of us. That's absurd, Howard blustered. We're leaving. You can leave, Vincent said calmly, after the blood test. Or shall I call the police and tell them about the interesting substances found in my system during a test I had done in Paris? About the similar substances found in our home food supply. He turned to his head of security. Mr. Sullivan, please show them what your team discovered. Sullivan placed several pill bottles on the table. Found these hidden in Mrs. Mercer's vanity. Interesting compounds. The kind that induce paranoia, hallucinations, cognitive impairment when administered over time. The color drained from Diana's face. Vincent, I don't know what you're talking about. No. Vincent smiled thinly. The blood tests will clarify things. Mine will show traces of these substances. Yours won't. And this, he gestured to the private investigator, who placed a folder on the table, will show the hotel meetings, the transfers of money, the planning. Boyd stood up suddenly. This is crazy, Vincent. You're having some kind of breakdown. Sit down, Boyd, Vincent said, his voice deadly quiet. Or the next folder contains the evidence of your embezzlement from my company. Yes, I know about that too. Boyd sank back into his chair, face ashen. You've all been busy, Vincent continued. Planning my downfall, my commitment to a psychiatric facility, the takeover of my company, the sale of my technology to parties who would use it for questionable purposes. All while poisoning me slowly, making me doubt my own sanity. He turned to the lawyer. Mr. Patterson has prepared several documents. Divorce papers for you, Diana. Termination paperwork for you, Boyd. And for you, Howard. Evidence of conspiracy, attempted murder by poisoning, and corporate espionage. Enough to send you to prison for decades. Howard stood up, fury in his eyes. You have nothing. No court would. Sit down, Vincent commanded, and something in his tone made Howard comply. I have everything. Every meeting, every text, every email, every transfer. I have the medication, I have the blood tests, I have witnesses. Your arrogance made you sloppy. He turned to Marilyn, his voice softening slightly. And you, Marilyn, the silent witness. I found your journal. You knew but did nothing. Tears filled Marilyn's eyes. I couldn't stop him. I never could. I know, Vincent said. That's why you have a choice the others don't. He laid out their options with clinical precision. For Diana, sign the divorce papers, walk away with nothing, and avoid criminal charges. For Boyd, resign, return the embezzled funds, never work in the industry again. For Howard, transfer his shares in several key companies to Vincent, retire from business entirely, and stay silent forever. And if we refuse? Howard asked, his voice shaking with rage. Vincent smiled, and it was a terrible sight. Then I destroy you. Not just legally, though that will happen. I will personally ensure that every relationship, every opportunity, every moment of peace is systematically dismantled. You've seen what I can build, Howard. Imagine what I can break. The room was silent as the enormity of the situation sank in. You're bluffing, Diana finally said, but her voice wavered. Vincent looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time since Paris. You know I'm not. You've seen what I'm capable of when I set my mind to something. This is me, being merciful. Take it. One by one, they capitulated. Diana signed the papers with a shaking hand. Boyd wrote a confession of his embezzlement. Howard, the last to break, finally nodded his agreement. Marilyn alone was offered a different path, financial independence from Howard, a chance to rebuild her life without him. Her gratitude was tempered by decades of fear, but Vincent saw a flicker of hope in her eyes. As they left his house for the last time, Vincent felt no satisfaction, only a cold certainty that this was merely the beginning. They had tried to take everything from him. He would show them what that truly meant. Chapter 4. Foundations of Revenge. 6 months passed. To the outside world, Vincent Mercer appeared to be handling his divorce and family upheaval with admirable restraint. He'd given brief, dignified statements about growing apart and wishing Diana well. He'd cited business differences with Boyd and Howard. He sold the mansion, moved into a sleek downtown penthouse, and threw himself into work. What no one saw were the 16-hour days spent not just running his company, but methodically preparing his revenge. The divorce had been finalized quickly, with Diana accepting the harsh terms rather than face criminal charges. Boyd had disappeared from Boston's social scene entirely. Howard had announced his retirement, citing health concerns. On a rainy Tuesday morning, Vincent sat in his office overlooking the Boston skyline, reviewing the latest reports from the private investigators he'd hired to track his targets. "They think it's over," Vincent said to Dominic Walsh, his head of security and the one person who knew the full extent of Vincent's plans. A former Special Forces operative with a talent for discretion, Dom had been with Vincent for 8 years and had earned his absolute trust. "Most people would let it be over," Dom remarked, studying the surveillance photos spread across the desk. Vincent's eyes hardened. "Most people haven't been betrayed by everyone they trusted while being slowly poisoned." The photos showed Diana in Miami, living in a modest apartment, working as a real estate agent, a significant step down from her previous lifestyle. Another showed Boyd in Chicago, working at a small tech startup under a slightly altered name. Howard and Marilyn were still together, though living in reduced circumstances in a retirement community in Phoenix. "They're all struggling," Dom observed. "You've already taken their money, their status, their comfort. What more do you want?" "Justice," Vincent replied. "What they planned for me was a living death, committed to an institution, declared incompetent, watching everything I built being dismantled while I was too drugged to fight back. Financial discomfort is hardly equivalent." Dom nodded, understanding but concerned. "And Marilyn? She was a victim too." "Marilyn will be handled differently," Vincent conceded. "She'll be extracted before the real work begins." Over the next several weeks, Vincent expanded his network of allies. He cultivated relationships with influential people in Miami, Chicago, and Phoenix. He created shell companies to purchase properties and businesses near each target. He established digital surveillance that monitored their every communication. Most importantly, he reached out to Lena Rothwell, a brilliant psychologist who specialized in understanding manipulation and coercion. She'd been instrumental in helping Vincent process the trauma of being poisoned and gaslit by his family, and she'd agreed to consult on what Vincent called his project of accountability. "What you're planning goes beyond accountability," Lena said during one of their sessions in her office, the walls lined with books on psychology and ethics. "I'm not asking for absolution," Vincent replied. "I'm asking for perspective. I need to understand how they think, how they justify what they did, where their breaking points are." Lena studied him for a long moment. "The most dangerous thing about what you're doing isn't the potential legal consequences. It's what it will do to you. Revenge consumes the revenger, Vincent." "I'm not some hothead acting on impulse," Vincent countered. "This is calculated justice." "Is it justice when you're the one defining it, imposing it, and executing it?" she challenged. Vincent leaned forward. "When the system can't or won't provide justice, someone has to." Lena sighed. "I'll help you understand them, but I won't help you destroy them. Or yourself. There has to be a limit." Vincent agreed, though in his mind, the only limit was what he deemed necessary. The sessions with Lena proved invaluable, giving him insight into each target's psychological vulnerabilities. For Diana, it was her desperate need for status and security, her fear of being ordinary. For Boyd, it was his insecurity, his knowledge that he'd never measured up to Vincent, his desperate need for validation. For Howard, it was control. He couldn't bear not being in charge, not having the final say. Armed with this knowledge, Vincent began crafting customized approaches for each of them. He wasn't interested in quick satisfaction. He wanted them to experience the slow, creeping dread of having their lives systematically dismantled, just as they had planned for him. The first move came 3 months later. Vincent created a job opportunity for Marilyn, a position at a women's shelter in Boston, working with victims of domestic abuse. Through intermediaries, he arranged for her to be recruited, offered housing, given a chance at independence. Howard fought it, of course, but Marilyn finally found the courage to leave, aided by resources Vincent had put in place. Her extraction complete, Vincent could now proceed with the main phase of his plan without risking collateral damage to the one person who'd shown remorse. "It begins tomorrow," Vincent told Dom as they stood in the command center he'd established in a secure location. Screens showed real-time surveillance of Diana, Boyd, and Howard. "Are the teams in place?" Dom nodded grimly. "Everyone's ready. Last chance to reconsider." Vincent looked at the screens, at the people who had planned to destroy him. who had mocked him and poisoned him and betrayed every trust. No, he said quietly. No reconsideration. They made their choice in Paris. Now they'll live with the consequences. Chapter 5. The Architect's Design. The Miami sun beat down mercilessly as Diana Mercer, now Diana Lawrence again, showed a beachfront condo to potential buyers. At 40, she was still beautiful, but stress had etched fine lines around her eyes and mouth. The past 9 months had been a tremendous adjustment. From wealthy socialite and corporate wife to struggling real estate agent with a tarnished reputation had been a devastating fall. She'd expected Vincent to be vindictive after discovering the affair and the poisoning plot. What she hadn't expected was his restraint. He'd taken everything in the divorce, but hadn't pressed criminal charges. He'd effectively banished her from Boston's social circles, but hadn't actively destroyed her. Sometimes, that apparent mercy frightened her more than outright aggression would have. As you can see, the views are spectacular, she told the wealthy couple examining the $3.2 million property. She needed this commission desperately. The couple, the Hendersons, seemed impressed. Mr. Henderson was particularly interested in the property's security features, asking detailed questions that Diana struggled to answer. "Let me make a call to clarify those details," she said with her practiced smile. That evening, the Hendersons agreed to purchase the condo, offering full asking price. Diana celebrated with an expensive bottle of wine, a splurge she couldn't really afford but felt she deserved. The commission would keep her afloat for months. 3 days later, the sale fell through mysteriously. The Hendersons backed out without explanation. The same thing happened with her next 2 promising clients. Each time, they seemed enthusiastic until suddenly withdrawing without clear reasons. What Diana didn't know was that the Hendersons were actors hired by Vincent, as were the other clients. Each failed sale pushed her closer to financial ruin while giving her just enough hope to keep trying. Meanwhile, in Chicago, Boyd was facing his own subtle catastrophe. The startup he joined was developing promising technology for supply chain management. Boyd had managed to work his way up to a senior position despite his checkered past. He'd been careful, using his middle name and mother's maiden name to create some distance from the Mercer scandal. Then the company's systems were hacked. Nothing was stolen, but random glitches began appearing in code that Boyd had worked on. His colleagues grew suspicious. The company's founder called him in for a meeting. "These security breaches all trace back to your access points," the founder said, showing him the evidence. "That's impossible," Boyd protested. "Someone must be framing me." The evidence was circumstantial but damning. Boyd was placed on leave pending investigation. He knew his career couldn't survive another scandal. What he didn't know was that Vincent had acquired a significant stake in the company through a shell corporation and had instructed his cybersecurity team to create the perfect digital frame job, untraceable to anyone but Boyd. In Phoenix, Howard Lawrence faced a different kind of assault. His carefully managed reputation began to unravel when a respected business journal published an exposé on his past business practices, revealing ethical corners cut and competitors undermined through questionable means. The article didn't mention the plot against Vincent, but it painted Howard as a ruthless operator who valued control above all else. Former associates suddenly remembered other instances of Howard's questionable ethics. Invitations to charity events and board meetings dried up. His membership at an exclusive golf club was revoked due to behavioral concerns. Howard became paranoid, suspecting Vincent but unable to prove anything. The stress exacerbated his heart condition, landing him in the hospital. Vincent, monitoring everything, noted this development with cold satisfaction. Back in Boston, Vincent continued to thrive professionally. His company secured major government contracts. He was featured in business magazines as a resilient innovator who'd overcome personal tragedy. He dated casually, but never seriously, keeping everyone at a distance. Only Dom and Lena saw glimpses of the obsession driving him. His penthouse featured a room that Dom called the War Room, walls covered with information about Diana, Boyd, and Howard, their daily routines, their vulnerabilities, their few remaining assets. "You're winning," Lena observed during one of their sessions. "They're all suffering. Is it enough yet?" "It's barely begun," Vincent replied. "This is just setting the stage." Lena frowned. "You're different lately. Colder. More detached." "I'm focused," Vincent corrected. "There's a difference." "Is there?" "You've driven Howard to the hospital. Diana's nearly destitute. Boyd's about to lose everything for the fourth time. When does it end? Vincent's eyes were like obsidian. When they've experienced the complete dismantling of their lives. When they understand fully what they tried to do to me. And then what? Lena pressed. What comes after revenge? The question caught Vincent off guard. He hadn't thought beyond his meticulously planned retribution. I don't know, he admitted. I can't see past it yet. Lena nodded sadly. That's what worries me. That night, Vincent received word that Marilyn was thriving at the women's shelter, helping others while healing herself. She'd sent a message through Dom, thanking the anonymous benefactor who'd given her a new start. Vincent allowed himself a moment of satisfaction at this one constructive act amid his campaign of destruction. The next phase began a week later. Vincent arranged for Diana to receive a job offer from a prestigious real estate firm in Boston, a chance at redemption, at returning to the city and lifestyle she craved. The catch: the firm was secretly owned by Vincent through another shell company. Boyd received an anonymous tip about a major investor interested in his supply chain ideas, someone willing to back him despite the current cloud of suspicion. The investor's representative, another of Vincent's operatives, suggested a meeting in Boston. Howard received troubling news from his doctors. His condition required specialized treatment available at a specific cardiac center in Boston. Vincent watched as his targets took the bait, each drawn back to the city where he waited, like a spider at the center of an intricate web. They're all coming, Dom reported. Diana arrives Tuesday, Boyd Thursday. Howard is being transferred to Boston Memorial on Friday. Vincent nodded, satisfied. Perfect. Have the final preparations been made at the Edgerton property? The Edgerton property was a secluded estate outside Boston that Vincent had purchased through yet another shell company. It had been extensively renovated according to his specifications. Everything's ready, Dom confirmed. But Vincent, this crosses a line. Luring them to Boston is one thing. What you're planning at Edgerton is perfectly justified, Vincent finished. They planned worse for me. Dom looked troubled, but nodded. Your call, boss. Always has been. Vincent turned to the window, looking out at the Boston skyline. The endgame begins now. Chapter 6, Convergence. Diana arrived in Boston with cautious optimism. The job offer from Platinum Circle Properties seemed almost too good to be true. A senior position with a six-figure salary, a company apartment for the first 3 months, and a client list that included some of the city's elite. She'd checked the firm's credentials thoroughly and found nothing suspicious. It appeared to be legitimate, if somewhat new to the Boston market. She was greeted by Alexis Porter, the firm's HR director, who was gracious and welcoming. The office in Back Bay was elegant and professional. Everything seemed perfect. We've arranged a dinner tomorrow night so you can meet some key clients, Alexis informed her. Very exclusive. Very important for your position here. Diana spent her first day being oriented to the firm's procedures and properties. No one mentioned Vincent or her past. It seemed she might actually have a fresh start. Boyd arrived in Boston 2 days later, checking into a boutique hotel downtown. The mysterious investor, who communicated only through a representative named Michael Crane, had arranged for 3 days of meetings to discuss his supply chain management concept. Boyd was desperate for this opportunity. The investigation at his previous company had been inconclusive, but the damage to his reputation was done. This investor represented his last chance at redemption. Howard's arrival was less voluntary. His cardiac condition had deteriorated suddenly, necessitating transfer to Boston Memorial for specialized treatment. He was conscious, but weak, constantly monitoring his phone for updates on the business journal's ongoing investigation into his past. Being back in Boston made him nervous. Too close to Vincent, too many memories, too much potential for further exposure. Vincent monitored their arrivals from his command center. Each target was under surveillance, their phones compromised, their movements tracked. He positioned operatives close to each of them. The helpful concierge at Boyd's hotel, the attentive nurse on Howard's floor, the friendly assistant assigned to Diana at her new firm. Everyone's in position, Dom reported. The dinner is set for tomorrow night at the Meridian. Diana's confirmed her attendance. Boyd's been invited to meet his investor there as well. Howard's doctor, our doctor, has advised him to rest, so he'll remain at the hospital. Vincent nodded, satisfied with the convergence of his plans. In the Edgerton property, final preparations complete. Security protocols tested. Medical supplies in place. We're ready. Vincent's phone buzzed with a message from Lena. Whatever you're planning, it's not too late to stop. Call me. He ignored it. He was beyond counseling now, beyond concerns about what his revenge might do to him. The only thing that mattered was seeing it through to the end. The following evening, Diana dressed carefully for the client dinner. Her new black dress was one of the few expensive items she'd managed to keep after the divorce. She needed to make a good impression. The Meridian was one of Boston's most exclusive restaurants, located on the top floor of a skyscraper with panoramic views of the city. Diana arrived 15 minutes early, determined to be professional. Ms. Lawrence, the maitre d' greeted her. Your party has a private dining room. Please follow me. She was led to an elevator that required a special key, then down a hallway to a set of double doors. The maitre d' opened them with a flourish. Inside, Boyd stood by the window, drink in hand, looking as shocked to see her as she was to see him. What are you doing here? They asked simultaneously. I have a business dinner, Diana said cautiously. I'm meeting an investor, Boyd replied. They stared at each other, the realization dawning slowly. It's a setup, Boyd whispered, just as the doors closed behind Diana with an ominous click. A screen on the far wall flickered to life, revealing Vincent's face. Hello, Diana. Hello, Boyd, he said calmly. I thought it was time for a family reunion. Diana lunged for the door, finding it locked. Boyd checked his phone. No signal. Don't bother, Vincent said. The room is completely secure. Now please sit down. We have much to discuss. Reluctantly, they sat at the elegant table set for three. Where are you? Boyd demanded. Nearby, Vincent replied cryptically. I wanted to personally invite you both to a special gathering at my new country estate. Howard will be joining us as well. Howard's in the hospital, Diana said. Yes, under the care of doctors who work for me, Vincent confirmed. He'll be transferred tonight, as will you both. On cue, the doors opened. Two men in suits entered, Dom and another security operative. This is kidnapping, Boyd protested weakly. Consider it an intervention, Vincent replied. You have two choices. Come willingly to hear what I have to say, after which you'll be free to go, or resist, in which case I release evidence of your poisoning plot, the embezzlement, and several other crimes I've documented to the authorities tonight. Your decision. Diana and Boyd exchanged glances, trapped, and they knew it. What do you want, Vincent? Diana asked. Closure, he replied. Something more meaningful than signatures on divorce papers. One night. Some truth. Then you can return to the lives I've allowed you to have. Diana nodded slowly, calculating that cooperation was her only viable option. Boyd followed her lead. Excellent, Vincent said. My associates will escort you. I'll see you both soon. The screen went dark. Dom approached with zip ties. Precautionary, he explained. You'll be released when we arrive. They were led through a service exit to a waiting SUV with tinted windows. Neither spoke during the hour-long drive out of the city, each lost in their own fears about what Vincent had planned. The Edgerton estate loomed out of the darkness, a sprawling stone mansion set back from the road, surrounded by acres of woodland. Security cameras monitored the perimeter. A gate opened automatically as they approached. Inside, the mansion had been transformed. The central great room contained 3 glass cubicles, each furnished with a bed, chair, and basic facilities. One was already occupied by Howard, who sat on the edge of the bed looking pale and defeated. Dom removed their zip ties and directed them each to a cubicle. The doors locked automatically behind them. What is this? Diana demanded, her voice slightly muffled by the glass. Think of it as an exhibit, Vincent said, entering the room. He looked exactly as he had on the screen, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, his face composed, eyes cold. The human betrayal exhibition. 3 specimens in their natural habitat. You've lost your mind, Boyd said, pounding on the glass. Interesting accusation, coming from someone who helped poison me into a simulated psychosis, Vincent replied mildly. The glass is unbreakable, by the way. Medical-grade security fixtures. The same kind used in psychiatric facilities, the kind you plan to commit me to. He approached Howard's cubicle. How are you feeling, Howard? Doctors tell me your condition is quite serious. You won't get away with this, Howard wheezed. I already have, Vincent told him. No one knows you're here. No one is looking for any of you. Diana's new colleagues think she's at a client dinner that ran late. Boyd's hotel thinks he's with his investor. Your doctors think you're at a private facility for VIP patients. Vincent circled the room, studying each of them. Tomorrow morning, you'll be released. You'll return to your lives, what's left of them. But tonight, we're going to have a conversation about consequences. He pressed a button on a remote. Screens descended from the ceiling in each cubicle, displaying different images. Diana's showed her failed real estate deals, the actors Vincent had hired, the shell company that owned her new firm. Boyd's showed the digital evidence planted to frame him, the fabricated investor, the operatives who'd manipulated his downfall. Howard's showed the journalists who'd exposed him, the medical reports indicating his treatment had been subtly manipulated to worsen his symptoms temporarily. You tried to destroy me, Vincent said quietly. I've spent the last year returning the favor. Everything that's happened to you, the career setbacks, the financial problems, the health issues, the social ostracism, all orchestrated by me. The three stared at the screens in horror, then at Vincent, finally understanding the extent of his revenge. Why bring us here just to tell us this? Diana asked, her voice shaking. Because I wanted you to know, Vincent replied. I wanted to see your faces when you realized that every moment of suffering you've experienced has been by my design, that your lives are effectively mine to control. He approached Diana's cubicle, studying her like a specimen. You laughed about me being too blind to see what was right in front of me. I see everything now, Diana. Every weakness, every vulnerability, every path to breaking you completely. What do you want? She whispered. Nothing, Vincent replied. That's the point. I don't want your apologies or explanations. I don't want reconciliation. I simply want you to understand that your lives continue because I allow it, not because you deserve it. He turned to face all three of them. Tomorrow, you'll be released. You'll return to your miserable lives with the knowledge that I'm watching. That at any moment, I could expose the poisoning plot, press charges, destroy whatever pitiful existence you've managed to salvage. Your freedom is my mercy, and my mercy can be revoked at any time. Howard clutched his chest, gasping slightly. Vincent watched him passively. Don't worry, Howard. We have medical personnel on standby. I don't want you dying before you've had time to fully appreciate your situation. As if on cue, a doctor entered, checked Howard's vitals, and administered medication. The older man's breathing eased. Get some rest, Vincent told them. We'll continue our discussion in the morning. He left them in their glass cells, each confronting the ruin of their lives and the man who had engineered it all. Chapter 7. The Final Judgment. Morning light filtered through skylights in the great room, illuminating the three glass cubicles and their occupants. Diana had barely slept, alternating between rage and terror throughout the night. Boyd had eventually collapsed into an exhausted slumber. Howard had been monitored hourly by the doctor, his condition stabilized but precarious. Vincent entered at precisely 7 a.m., accompanied by Dom and a woman the prisoners didn't recognize. She carried a laptop and had the clinical detachment of a researcher observing test subjects. I trust you slept well, Vincent said, his voice neutral. This is Dr. Rothwell. She's been consulting on what we might call the psychological aspects of our situation. Lena surveyed the cubicles with obvious disapproval. This isn't what we discussed, Vincent. Consider it an adjustment to the therapeutic approach, Vincent replied. He turned to his captives. Dr. Rothwell has been helping me understand the psychological underpinnings of betrayal, the motivations, the justifications people create for themselves. I agreed to help you process trauma, not to participate in this, Lena said firmly. Vincent's face remained impassive. You're here to observe, doctor. Nothing more. He approached Diana's cubicle. Let's begin with you. The wife. The first betrayal. Diana stood up, composed despite her circumstances. What do you want me to say? That I'm sorry? Fine. I'm sorry. Your insincerity is noted, Vincent replied. I'm not interested in forced apologies. I want to understand the progression from love to contempt. At what point did poisoning me seem like an acceptable solution to your dissatisfaction? Diana's facade cracked slightly. It wasn't my idea. But you implemented it, Vincent countered. You put the drugs in my food, in my drinks. You watched me become confused, anxious, begin to doubt my own mind. And you continued, day after day. Howard said it was the only way, Diana whispered. That you'd never agree to sell the company otherwise, never give up control. And that justified slowly driving me insane? Diana looked away. I told myself it wasn't permanent. That once the company was sold, once we had what we needed, you'd recover. How convenient, Vincent observed. He moved to Boyd's cubicle. And you, brother, was that your rationalization too? Boyd couldn't meet his eyes. I didn't want to do it. Asked Diana. I tried to find another way. Yet you proceeded, Vincent said coldly. My own brother. The man I bailed out of every failure. Gave job after job, protected from consequence. You always made me feel like a charity case. Boyd suddenly exploded. Your pathetic little brother who couldn't measure up. Your condescension was unbearable. So you decided to take what was mine? My wife. My company. My sanity. Boyd fell silent, unable to justify his actions even to himself. Vincent finally turned to Howard. And the mastermind. The patriarch who couldn't bear that his daughter married someone he couldn't control. Howard's face was ashen, but his eyes still held defiance. You were never good enough for her. Never one of us. I did what any father would do. Most fathers don't orchestrate the psychological destruction of their sons-in-law, Vincent countered. Most fathers don't involve their daughters in slow-motion murder plots. It wasn't murder, Howard protested weakly. No? What would you call it when you permanently destroy someone's mind? When you take everything that makes them who they are and systematically dismantle it? It's a death of sorts, Howard. You know that's true. Vincent stepped back, addressing all three. I've spent a year studying you, understanding you, learning what matters to you, what hurts you. I've discovered that for Diana, it's status and security. For Boyd, it's validation and recognition. For Howard, it's control and legacy. He gestured to the screens, which came to life again. I've systematically attacked each of those vulnerabilities. I've ensured Diana can never again access the social circles she craves. I've guaranteed Boyd will never achieve the success he desperately seeks. I've dismantled Howard's reputation and legacy piece by piece. The three watched in silence as Vincent outlined the details of his campaign against them. The operatives he'd placed in their lives, the opportunities he'd sabotaged, the subtle ways he'd influenced everything from their health to their housing. You've made your point, Diana finally said. You've won. What happens now? Do we spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders, waiting for your next attack? Vincent considered her question. That depends on you. I'm prepared to offer you each a choice. He approached a table that had been set up in the center of the room. On it were 3 documents. Option 1. You sign these confessions, detailing your roles in the conspiracy against me. I'll keep them in reserve, using them only if you attempt to rebuild your lives beyond the modest parameters I've established for you. You'll live with the constant knowledge that I can destroy you completely at any time. And option 2. Boyd asked. You refuse to sign, and I release all the evidence I've gathered to the authorities today. You face criminal charges for attempted murder, conspiracy, fraud, and whatever else my very expensive lawyers can add to the list. You spend the next decade or more in prison. Howard struggled to his feet. This is extortion. This is mercy, Vincent corrected. More than you showed me. Lena stepped forward. Vincent, this isn't justice. This is perpetuating the cycle of trauma. Stay out of this, doctor, Vincent warned. No, Lena said firmly. You brought me here to observe. Well, I'm observing a man becoming what he hates, someone who uses power to control and terrorize others. Her words hit Vincent like a physical blow. For a moment, his composed facade cracked, revealing the rage and pain beneath. They tried to destroy me, he said, his voice tight. And you've spent a year becoming like them, Lena replied gently. Look at yourself, Vincent. Look at what you've created here. She gestured to the glass cubicles, the surveillance screens, the clinical detachment with which he discussed ruining lives. Is this who you want to be? Vincent's jaw tightened. They deserve this. Maybe they do, Lena acknowledged. But you deserve better than to let them transform you into this. For a long moment, Vincent stood frozen, conflicting emotions warring within him. Then, something shifted in his eyes, not softening, exactly, but a clarity, a decision reached. You're right about one thing, doctor, he said quietly. I deserve better. He pressed a button that opened the cubicle doors. Dom tensed, ready for any attempt at escape, but none came. The 3 prisoners remained still, uncertain of this new development. I won't become like you, Vincent told them. I won't spend my life obsessed with your destruction the way you were with mine. That's the difference between us. He nodded to Dom, who distributed thick envelopes to each of them. Inside, you'll find evidence of everything you did, everything I know, and everything I've done in response, Vincent explained. You'll also find one-way tickets, Diana to Los Angeles, Boyd to Seattle, Howard to a retirement community in Florida. New identities have been arranged. Modest funds to start over. Why would you do this? Diana asked suspiciously. Because continuing to focus on destroying you means allowing you to continue controlling my life, Vincent replied. I'm choosing freedom from you instead. He turned to Howard. Your medical condition is real, by the way. The doctors weren't lying about that. There's a referral to a cardiac specialist in Florida in your envelope. Howard nodded slightly, for once without a caustic retort. If any of you attempt to contact each other, return to Boston, or interfere with my life in any way, the evidence goes public immediately, Vincent continued. Otherwise, this ends today. Just like that. Boyd asked incredulously. You torture us all night with how thoroughly you've destroyed our lives. And now you're letting us go? I'm letting myself go, Vincent corrected. From the burden of hating you. From the weight of planning your destruction. Don't mistake this for forgiveness. I will never forgive what you did. But I'm choosing to define my future without you in it. He gestured to Dom, who opened the main doors. The cars are waiting. You'll be taken to separate locations to begin your new lives. Any deviation from the instructions in your envelopes will have immediate consequences. One by one, they filed out, Howard supported by the doctor, Boyd still looking bewildered, Diana pausing at the door. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I did love you once. Vincent's expression didn't change. It's worth nothing, Diana. Goodbye. When they were gone, Lena approached Vincent cautiously. That was unexpected. Was it? Vincent asked, suddenly looking exhausted. Isn't this what you've been pushing me toward for months? Understanding is different from implementation, Lena observed. What changed? Vincent looked around the room he'd designed specifically for his revenge. The surveillance equipment, the custom-built cells, the clinical detachment of it all. I saw myself through their eyes, he admitted. And I didn't recognize the man looking back. Chapter 8, Aftermath. The dismantling of the Edgerton property took 3 days. Vincent supervised personally, ensuring that every trace of his elaborate revenge setup was removed. The glass cubicles were dismantled, the surveillance equipment packed away, the medical supplies donated anonymously to a local hospital. Dom oversaw the security team as they methodically erased all evidence of what had transpired there. When they were finished, the estate looked like any other luxury property. Beautiful, expensive, and utterly conventional. What will you do with it now? Dom asked as they stood in the empty great room. Sell it, Vincent replied. I have no use for it anymore. For the first time in over a year, Vincent felt something like lightness. Not happiness. Exactly. The betrayal had cut too deep for easy recovery, but the obsessive weight of planning revenge had lifted, leaving space for other possibilities. He returned to Boston and immersed himself in work with renewed focus. His company was expanding into new markets, developing encryption technology that was revolutionizing digital security. Without the distraction of revenge, Vincent found his creative and strategic thinking sharper than ever. Lena continued their sessions, helping him process the trauma of betrayal without letting it define him. You made the right choice at Edgerton, she told him during one session. But I'm still concerned about your isolation. You've built walls around yourself. Vincent shrugged. Trust doesn't come easily after what happened. Understandable, Lena acknowledged. But isolation isn't sustainable long-term. Humans need connection. I have colleagues, business associates. That's not the same as genuine relationships, and you know it. Vincent didn't argue the point, but he didn't embrace her suggestion either. The walls he'd built felt necessary, protective. 3 months after the Edgerton confrontation, Vincent received a message from Marilyn. She was still in Boston, still working at the women's shelter. She asked to meet. They sat at a quiet cafe on Newberry Street, the autumn sunshine casting a golden light over the outdoor tables. Marilyn looked different, stronger, more present, her former perpetual anxiety replaced by a calm confidence. I heard about Howard's move to Florida, she said after they'd exchanged pleasantries, and about Diana and Boyd disappearing to the West Coast. Vincent tensed slightly. News travels. Not as much as you might think, Marilyn said with a small smile. I still have a few contacts who mentioned it. I wanted to thank you. For what? For giving me a chance at a real life, she said simply. And for not destroying Howard completely. Whatever he did, and I know it was terrible, he's still the father of my children. Vincent studied her thoughtfully. You've changed. So have you, she observed. There's less darkness around you now. They talked for over an hour. Marilyn told him about her work with domestic abuse survivors, how her own experience had given her insight into their struggles. Vincent shared some of his new business ventures, carefully avoiding any mention of his former revenge campaign. As they were saying goodbye, Marilyn hesitated, then said, Vincent, I know you probably want nothing to do with anyone connected to what happened, but my daughter Amanda is moving to Boston next month. She wasn't involved. She's been in Europe for years, barely in touch with her father. She's brilliant, developing AI ethics frameworks for tech companies. Your company might benefit from her expertise. Vincent's instinct was to refuse any connection to his former family, but something in Marilyn's expression made him pause. Have her send her resume to my office, he said finally. No promises. That's all I ask, Marilyn replied, squeezing his hand gratefully before departing. 2 weeks later, Amanda Lawrence's resume arrived. Vincent studied it with professional detachment. Her credentials were impressive: Oxford doctorate, publications in leading journals, consulting work for major tech firms. There was no denying she would be an asset to his company's new AI security division. After careful consideration, Vincent arranged an interview. Amanda was nothing like her parents, forthright, ethical, with a genuine passion for ensuring technology served humanity rather than exploiting it. She made no mention of family connections, and Vincent respected her enough not to bring them up. He hired her based solely on merit, assigning her to a division that reported to his head of research rather than directly to him. He maintained professional distance, observing her work from afar. Over the following months, Amanda proved her value repeatedly, developing ethical frameworks for the company's AI applications that anticipated regulatory requirements before they were implemented. Her team respected her. Her insights improved their products. At the company holiday party in December, Vincent found himself in conversation with her about the philosophical implications of their latest encryption protocol. For the first time since the betrayal, he felt the spark of genuine intellectual connection with another person. You don't talk about your family, Amanda observed during a lull in their discussion. Neither do you, Vincent countered. Amanda smiled slightly. Fair point. Family is complicated. Indeed. For what it's worth, she said carefully, I know something about what happened. Not everything, but enough. I've always thought you deserved better. Vincent studied her face, looking for any sign of manipulation or hidden agenda. He found none, just honest acknowledgement of a painful truth. Thank you, he said simply. They returned to their discussion of encryption protocols, the moment of personal connection acknowledged but not dwelled upon. Something had shifted subtly between them. Not romance, but the possibility of genuine friendship built on shared interests and mutual respect. Later that night, alone in his penthouse, Vincent looked out at the Boston skyline and realized he'd taken his first real step toward healing. Not through revenge or isolation, but through the much harder work of cautious re-engagement with the world. Lena had been right. Walls might protect, but they also imprisoned. The path forward wasn't forgetting or forgiving what had happened, but refusing to let it control his future. He sent Dom a text. The surveillance on the 3 targets. Discontinue it. They're no longer our concern. Dom's reply came quickly. You sure, boss? Vincent thought about it, testing his own reaction to the idea of letting go of that last thread of control. Yes, it's time. For the first time in nearly 2 years, Vincent slept without dreams of betrayal or revenge. Chapter 9, Resolution. 5 years passed. Vincent's company grew into a global leader in cybersecurity and ethical AI development. He remained intensely private but was no longer isolated, having built a small circle of trusted colleagues and friends. The walls he'd constructed after the betrayal hadn't come down entirely, but they had windows now, carefully placed openings that allowed genuine connection while maintaining necessary boundaries. Amanda Lawrence had become his chief ethics officer, her insights proving invaluable as the company navigated the complex intersection of technology, privacy, and security. Their professional relationship had gradually evolved into a friendship built on mutual respect and shared values. They never discussed her father or Diana, maintaining an unspoken agreement to focus on the present rather than the painful past. On a crisp October morning, Vincent sat in his office reviewing quarterly projections when his assistant announced an unexpected visitor. "Mr. Reeves says it's urgent," the assistant added apologetically. Vincent froze. He hadn't heard that name in years, not since he'd sent Boyd to Seattle with a new identity and strict instructions never to contact him again. "Send him in," Vincent said after a moment, his voice controlled. The man who entered wasn't Boyd, but a younger version, early 20s, with the same jawline but different eyes, more serious and thoughtful. "Uncle Vincent," the young man said, extending his hand. "I'm Elliot, Boyd's son." Vincent stood slowly, studying his nephew. He'd known of Elliot's existence, but had never met him. The boy had been raised primarily by his mother after Boyd's early divorce. "How did you find me?" Vincent asked, cautiously shaking the offered hand. "It wasn't easy," Elliot admitted. "Dad never talks about you or what happened. But I've been piecing things together for years. News articles about your company led me here. Does your father know you're here?" Elliot shook his head. "No, and he wouldn't approve if he did." Vincent gestured to a chair. "Why are you here, Elliot?" The young man sat, his posture betraying nervous tension despite his attempt at confidence. "My father is dying. Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. He is maybe 3 months." Vincent absorbed this information without visible reaction. "I'm sorry to hear that, but I fail to see why you've come to me after all this time." "He talks in his sleep," Elliot said quietly. "About Paris. About poisoning you. About what he did." Vincent's face remained impassive, but his hands tightened imperceptibly on the arms of his chair. "I confronted him," Elliot continued. "He denied it at first, but eventually he told me everything. What they planned to do to you. What you did in response. How you could have destroyed them completely, but chose not to." "That was a long time ago," Vincent said neutrally. "He's afraid," Elliot said. "Not of dying exactly. He's afraid of facing whatever comes next without making amends. He wants to see you, to apologize in person, but he's too proud and too ashamed to ask." Vincent stood and walked to the window, his back to Elliot. "What do you expect from me? Forgiveness? Absolution? I made my choice 5 years ago to move forward without your father in my life. That hasn't changed. I'm not asking you to forgive him," Elliot said. "I'm asking you to give him the chance to face what he did. For his sake, yes, but also for yours." Vincent turned, his expression skeptical. "My sake, you're successful. You've rebuilt your life. But from what I can see, you've never fully let go of what happened. Meeting him, hearing his apology, whether you accept it or not, might help you close that chapter completely." Vincent studied his nephew thoughtfully. The young man had insight beyond his years. "You seem very different from your father." "I try to be," Elliot acknowledged with a sad smile. "I've spent most of my life watching him run from consequences, from responsibility. I don't want to live that way." After a long moment, Vincent nodded once. "Where is he?" "Mass General. He was transferred here for a clinical trial. It's not expected to save him, just possibly extend his time." Vincent returned to his desk and pressed the intercom. "Cancel my appointments for the afternoon." To Elliot, he said, "I make no promises about what will happen, but I'll hear him out." The hospital room was private, with views of the Charles River. Boyd looked diminished, his once robust frame now skeletal, skin yellowed from liver involvement. He turned at the sound of the door opening, his eyes widening in shock at the sight of Vincent. "You came," he whispered, voice raspy. "Your son is persuasive," Vincent replied, remaining near the door. Elliot looked between them. "I'll give you privacy." When they were alone, the silence stretched uncomfortably, years of unspoken words hanging between them. "I don't have the right to ask for forgiveness," Boyd finally said. "No, you don't," Vincent agreed coldly. "But I am sorry," Boyd continued. "More than I can express. What we planned, what I agreed to do, it was unforgivable." Vincent studied his brother dispassionately. "Why did you do it? After everything I did for you, why?" Boyd's eyes filled with tears of shame. "Because I was weak. Because I was jealous. Because Diana made me feel special instead of second best. Because Howard convinced me I deserved more than you'd given me." He paused, gathering strength. "All excuses. No justifications." Vincent approached the bed slowly. "Do you know what the worst part was? Not the affair. Not even the poisoning. It was the betrayal of trust. I would have done anything for you, Boyd. Anything. I know, Boyd whispered. I've had 5 years to think about it. 5 years of looking over my shoulder, waiting for the other shoe to drop. 5 years wondering why you let us go. I let you go because holding on to hatred was destroying me, Vincent said simply. It had nothing to do with mercy. Boyd nodded weakly. I understand. I just needed you to know that I recognize what I did, that I live with that knowledge every day. Vincent stood silently, conflicting emotions warring within him. Finally, he asked, Has Diana been to see you? Boyd shook his head. We haven't spoken since that night at Edgerton. I tried to contact her once, early on, but the number was disconnected. Howard died 2 years ago. Heart failure. Vincent absorbed this information without comment. He disconnected his surveillance on all of them years ago, choosing to focus on his own life rather than monitoring theirs. Is there anything you need? Vincent asked after another silence. Medically, I mean. Better doctors, experimental treatments. Boyd looked surprised at the offer. No, the trial is the best option left. It's just time now. Vincent nodded. I should go. Thank you, Boyd said, his voice breaking. For coming. For hearing me out. For not destroying us completely when you could have. Vincent paused at the door. I didn't do it for you, he said. I did it because I refused to become what you were, someone who destroys others for personal gain. He left without looking back, finding Elliot waiting in the hallway. How did it go? Elliot asked cautiously. It's done, Vincent replied. He handed Elliot a business card. If he needs anything, medical expenses, comfort measures, call this number. My private assistant will handle it. Elliot took the card, visibly moved. You don't owe him that. No, Vincent agreed. But it's what I can do without compromising who I am. They walked to the elevator in silence. As the doors opened, Vincent said, You're nothing like him, you know? There's strength in you, integrity. Don't waste it. Elliot nodded, understanding the weight of those words from this man. Thank you. Back in his office, Vincent sat alone as evening shadows lengthened across the room. He felt strangely hollow, as if something long festering had finally been lanced and drained away. His phone buzzed with a message from Amanda. Still on for the ethics committee dinner tonight? He hesitated, then replied, Yes. But first, could we talk? There's a family history I think you should know. Her response came quickly. Your office, 30 minutes. I'll bring coffee. Vincent smiled slightly. For years, he'd kept their relationship strictly professional, reluctant to build any connection with someone linked to his past. Today, something had shifted. Boyd's imminent death had reminded him of life's impermanence, of the futility of holding onto old wounds at the expense of new possibilities. He wasn't ready for complete openness, nor full forgiveness for what had been done to him. Some betrayals cut too deep for that. But he was ready to share his story with someone who might understand, who had proven herself trustworthy through years of principled actions rather than empty words. When Amanda arrived with coffee and curious eyes, Vincent began speaking about Paris, about betrayal, about revenge and its aftermath. For the first time, he told the whole story without calculation or restraint. She listened without judgment, occasionally asking clarifying questions, but mostly allowing him the catharsis of unburdening. So that's why you hired me, she said when he finished. Connection to Marilyn. Initially, Vincent admitted, but you earned your position through merit alone. Amanda nodded, processing everything. And now, Boyd's dying. Howard's gone. Diana's somewhere on the West Coast. Is it finally over? Vincent considered the question carefully. The past doesn't disappear, he said finally, but its power to control the present. Yes, I think that part is over. Good, Amanda said simply. She stood, gathering her things. Still on for dinner? Vincent rose as well, feeling lighter than he had in years. Yes, but not the committee dinner. Something smaller. Just the two of us. Amanda studied him with a small smile. Are you asking me on a date, Vincent Mercer? I'm suggesting we continue this conversation somewhere more comfortable, he replied. As two people who respect each other, learning if there might be more. I'd like that, she said. As they left the office together, Vincent realized he'd finally achieved the true victory over betrayal. Not through revenge or punishment, but through reclaiming his ability to trust selectively, to build connections on his own terms, to move forward without being defined by what had been done to him. He would never forgive Diana, Boyd, or Howard. Some betrayals were beyond forgiveness. But he had found something more valuable than vengeance. The freedom to define his own future, unburdened by hatred uncontrolled by fear. In the end, that was the most ruthless revenge of all, living well, on his own terms, while those who had tried to destroy him faded into irrelevance, taking their betrayal with them into oblivion. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.